The cameras weren't supposed to catch this, but the truth can't stay hidden forever. Just when fans thought Jim Jones and Chrissy were finally walking down the aisle after years of waiting, a shocking wedding bombshell exploded backstage, turning celebration into chaos. What should have been the couple's big moment of love became a screaming match so explosive it left the entire crew frozen in disbelief. Jim's temper flared, Chrissy fired back, and the tension reached a boiling point nobody could have predicted. Now, with the crew stunned and the future of their relationship hanging in the balance, fans are left asking, is this the end for Jim and Chrissy, or just another chapter in their never-ending love war? The scene was set for what should have been one of the most celebrated milestones in hip-hop reality TV history. After years of waiting, countless false starts, and endless speculation, Jim Jones and Chrissy Lampkin were finally about to take the step fans had begged to see: a wedding. The anticipation backstage was electric, with the crew buzzing, friends whispering, and even the producers smiling at what seemed like a ratings goldmine in the making. But just as quickly as the joy built up, it all came crashing down with a revelation so shocking it nearly tore the couple apart in front of everyone. The bombshell hit like a grenade. Moments before Chrissy was supposed to step out in her gown, someone whispered something into her ear, a truth she wasn't prepared to face. According to insiders, Chrissy discovered last-minute details about Jim's hesitation surrounding the wedding. Instead of standing tall with full confidence in the vows he was about to take, Jim had allegedly confided to the crew that he wasn't sure if marriage was the right move right now. And once that word reached Chrissy, the fairy tale moment turned into a nightmare. The cameras captured it all, though much of the footage may never make it to air. Chrissy stormed toward Jim, demanding to know if the rumors were true. Was this ceremony, this moment she had fought for, just another show? Had she been played, again, by the man who had promised her commitment countless times over the past decade? Jim, caught off guard and cornered, reacted the only way he knew how, with fury. "Why would you even bring that up right now?" he shouted, his voice echoing through the backstage area. The crew froze in disbelief. Sound guys clutched their headsets tighter, production assistants stopped in their tracks, and even the camera operators hesitated, unsure whether to keep rolling. But the tension was impossible to ignore. This wasn't a simple lover's spat. This was years of unresolved pain boiling over in the worst possible moment. Chrissy, never one to back down, fired back with equal heat. "Because I'm not about to walk out there and make a fool of myself. If you're not 100% in this," she screamed. Her eyes, usually filled with fire, now brimmed with tears. The makeup artist who had just finished Chrissy's look stood off to the side, horrified, as mascara began to run down Chrissy's cheeks. What was supposed to be a beautiful bride-to-be moment became raw, unscripted heartbreak. For years, Chrissy has been the woman fans rooted for. From the very beginning of her journey with Jim, she made it clear that she wanted more than just promises. She wanted stability, family, and a marriage to seal their love. And time after time, Jim delayed, dodged, or simply brushed it aside. When Chrissy famously got down on one knee and proposed to him, fans thought the tables had turned. But instead of leading to a wedding, it led to years of more waiting, more excuses, and more frustration. So for this moment to unravel backstage, right before what should have been the culmination of that fight, it was devastating. Jim, for his part, looked torn. He wasn't trying to humiliate Chrissy, insiders say. To him, the hesitation was about timing, pressure, and the weight of marriage being more than just a TV stunt. But the way it came out, through whispers instead of his own mouth, made it look like betrayal. And betrayal, in Chrissy's eyes, was the ultimate sin. "Do you know how long I've been waiting for this?" Chrissy's voice cracked as she pushed back against Jim's explanations. "Do you know what I've sacrificed? How many years? I've stood by you, fought for you, defended you, and you still can't give me a straight answer?" The crew described the silence that followed as unbearable. Nobody knew whether to intervene, whether to comfort Chrissy, or whether to just keep out of the way. This wasn't just reality TV drama, it was real life spilling into the spotlight, and the heartbreak was palpable. What makes this moment so explosive is the history leading up to it. Jim and Chrissy's relationship has never been a quiet one. Their love has been tested by family disapproval, rumors of infidelity, public arguments, and the glaring pressure of reality TV. Fans have seen them fight, reconcile, and fight again. But despite it all, their bond always seemed unshakable. That's why the crew, seasoned as they are in love and hip-hop drama, stood stunned. They had seen fights, they had seen tears, but this felt different. This felt like the kind of fight that could break even the strongest of couples. As the argument escalated, Jim tried to regain control. He insisted that he loved Chrissy, that he wanted a future with her, but that he refused to be pressured into marriage on someone else's timeline. "Marriage ain't no show," he yelled, gesturing at the cameras. "It's real life. And if I'm gonna do this, I need to be ready, not forced into it because everybody else wants it." But to Chrissy, those words sounded like excuses, the same ones she's heard for years. And hearing them minutes before walking down the aisle was the final straw. "You're never gonna be ready, Jim," she screamed. "You just want me waiting forever while you figure it out. I can't keep doing this. Not again. Not tonight." By now, Chrissy's voice was hoarse and the tears were unstoppable. The hairdresser tried to step in with tissues, but Chrissy waved her away, pacing in her gown like a woman trapped in a nightmare. Jim reached for her arm, but she pulled away, her body trembling with anger. The energy backstage was chaotic. Some crew members whispered to each other about whether production would have to delay or even cancel the entire wedding scene. Others exchanged glances, silently agreeing that this moment would go down as one of the most unforgettable meltdowns in love and hip-hop history. But nobody dared to move closer. The fight belonged to Jim and Chrissy, and only they could decide how it ended. What shocked everyone the most was how raw Jim became in the heat of the argument. For years, he has portrayed himself as the tough, untouchable rapper, cool, collected, and unbothered. But in that moment, his voice cracked, his hands shook, and his words stumbled. Beneath the anger, it was clear he was scared. Not of Chrissy, but of losing her. "You're all I got," he finally blurted out. "I don't want to lose you, but I need you to understand I can't be pushed into this. Not like this." The vulnerability in his voice stopped Chrissy in her tracks, but only for a moment. The damage was already done. And that's where part one leaves us, on the edge of disaster, with a wedding hanging by a thread, a couple tearing each other apart, and a crew standing frozen in disbelief. The bombshell had been dropped, the fight had erupted, and the world backstage had been turned upside down. The question now was simple. Would Jim and Chrissy survive this, or had the long-awaited wedding finally become the breaking point everyone feared? Backstage, the chaos only grew heavier. What started as a heated argument between Jim and Chrissy had now spiraled into a scene that no one, not the crew, not the producers, not even their closest friends, could control. The wedding, once the centerpiece of the day, was now the last thing on anyone's mind. All eyes were on Jim and Chrissy as the storm raged between them. "Why you always gotta pick the worst time to do this?" Jim barked, his voice straining, equal parts anger and desperation. He pulled at his suit jacket, pacing in frustration, as though movement would help him escape the mess. Chrissy wasn't having it. She stood firm, still in her wedding gown, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Her voice cracked through the noise like thunder. "The worst time? No, Jim. The worst time was every single year you strung me along, telling me, 'Soon, baby, soon.' This is the only time I got left to stand up for myself." Her words hit like daggers, and the crew collectively winced. Everyone knew Chrissy's pain wasn't just about this night. It was about years of waiting, years of watching Jim dodge the commitment she wanted most. And now, to find out that hesitation still lingered, right before walking down the aisle, it was humiliation on top of heartbreak. The air backstage was suffocating. Assistants shuffled nervously, unsure whether to try smoothing things over or to keep their distance. A few producers huddled together, whispering about what to do if Chrissy walked away completely. One of them muttered, "This was supposed to be the big moment. This is supposed to be the payoff." But instead of a celebration, they were standing in the middle of a disaster. And the whispers didn't stop there. Crew members started quietly asking the same question fans would later scream online. Had Jim been playing Chrissy this whole time? Jim's son Pootie, who had been lingering nearby, looked torn. On one hand, he loved his father deeply. On the other, he'd watched Chrissy sacrifice everything for their family, often putting herself in uncomfortable positions just to prove her loyalty. To see her breaking down like this, it broke something in him too. He leaned against a wall, silent, but his eyes told a story. Meanwhile, Chrissy's voice grew sharper. "You think I'm some kind of joke, Jim? You think I'm just supposed to keep waiting, keep smiling, keep playing your ride or die while you get to decide if I'm ever good enough to be your wife?" Jim snapped back instantly. "Stop twisting this like I don't love you. You know I do. I been here. I ain't go nowhere. But marriage ain't just about a dress and cameras. It's forever. And if I don't feel ready, what you want me to do, lie?" That word, lie, lit another fuse. Chrissy's eyes narrowed, her voice dripping with bitterness. "Lie? Jim, your whole life with me has been a lie. Every promise you made, every ring you put on my finger, every time you told me I was the only one. You think I don't hear what people say about you? You think I don't see the way other women look at you?" The room fell silent again. Accusations of infidelity had always haunted Jim, though rarely spoken so openly. The crew exchanged glances. This fight was no longer about hesitation. It was about trust, or the lack of it. Jim's face hardened. "You really gonna bring that up right now? In front of everybody?" His voice cracked under the weight of her words, but anger coated it quickly. "After everything we've been through, you gon' act like I ain't stand by you? You gon' act like I ain't give you my whole life?" Chrissy shook her head, tears falling freely. "You gave me everything but the one thing I asked for, a commitment. And now? Now you telling everybody you're not even sure about this wedding? You think I can just walk out there smiling, pretending like my man's not scared of being my husband? Nah, Jim. I'm done pretending." The tension was unbearable. One of the producers finally stepped in, cautiously approaching the couple. "Maybe we should take a break," she whispered, trying not to make things worse. But Chrissy waved her off. Her eyes locked on Jim like no one else existed. Jim rubbed his face, the weight of the moment breaking through his tough exterior. "You think this easy for me? You think I ain't scared of messing this up? Look around, Chrissy. Everybody waiting for us to fall apart. And I don't want to give them that satisfaction." His voice grew softer, almost pleading. "But marriage ain't something you force. You do it when it's right. And I don't know if right now is right." That last sentence was the nail in the coffin for Chrissy. Her shoulders slumped, her expression shifting from fiery anger to quiet devastation. For the first time that night, she looked defeated. The crew, who had been standing frozen, felt the energy shift. This wasn't just another fight. It was the unraveling of a dream Chrissy had been building for years. One of her closest friends, who had been helping with her dress, rushed forward to hold her as she broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. The sight of Chrissy in tears silenced even the boldest of crew members. Jim reached out, his hand trembling as he tried to touch her shoulder. But Chrissy pulled away, whispering through her tears, "Don't touch me right now. Just don't." That rejection cut him deeper than any words could. For once, Jim Jones looked powerless. The room buzzed with speculation. Would Chrissy walk away from the wedding? Would Jim try to salvage it? Or was this the moment that finally broke them for good? Nobody knew. Even the cameras, usually relentless in capturing every second, began to lower slowly. It felt almost wrong to record what was happening. It was too raw, too real. And then came the whispers of the bombshell itself. Word spread quickly. Backstage that Jim had confided earlier in the day that he wasn't sure marriage would change anything. Some said he even joked about how people get married just to end up divorced. To Chrissy, those comments were more than hesitation. They were a slap in the face. A reminder that while she was walking into this with her whole heart, he was still treating it like an option, not a promise. As the night dragged on, the wedding seemed further and further away. Guests out front, who had no idea of the chaos happening backstage, started asking questions about the delay. Meanwhile, Chrissy's gown, once a symbol of her dream, now felt heavy, almost mocking. She sat in a chair, her head in her hands, while Jim paced in silence, pulling at his chains, as though they were choking him. And the crew? They were stunned into silence. Some whispered about whether this would ever air. Others said it was too real, too messy, even for love and hip-hop. But all of them knew they had just witnessed history, a moment fans would never forget, whether the wedding happened or not. By the end of the night, one thing was clear: the wedding might not happen at all. And even if it did, the damage was already done. When the shouting finally dulled into silence, the air backstage felt heavy, like everyone was holding their breath at the same time. The wedding venue outside was still buzzing with guests sipping champagne and laughing, completely unaware that behind the velvet curtains, Jim and Chrissy's love story was teetering on the edge of collapse. The crew stood frozen, trying to figure out their next move. Was this the end of the wedding episode, or the beginning of something far bigger? Cameras lingered in corners, catching fragments of emotion. Chrissy's mascara-stained tears, Jim's frustrated pacing, and the shocked faces of friends who had been caught in the crossfire. Word traveled fast, even without social media. A stagehand whispered to another, "Yo, I think it's over. She ain't going back out there." The other replied, "Nah, they've been through too much. This ain't the first fight. They'll patch it up." But even that optimism felt shaky. The energy was different this time. Chrissy, still sitting in her gown, looked drained. Her hands trembled as she held onto her bouquet, but her eyes were vacant, like the fight had taken every ounce of strength from her. A close friend leaned down, whispering comfort into her ear, but Chrissy only shook her head. The dream she'd clung to for years had shattered in front of everyone. Meanwhile, Jim stood apart, running his hands over his braids and muttering to himself. His usual bravado, the Harlem swagger that had carried him through rap battles and business wars, was gone. Instead, he looked like a man trapped between pride and regret. For once, he wasn't the star of the show. He was just a man who might have lost the woman he loved. And then came the crew's reaction, whispers growing louder, eyes darting nervously. One producer leaned into another, sighing, "This is bigger than a wedding. This is ratings gold." "But at what cost?" Another replied, "The cost is Chrissy's heart, and maybe their whole future." It was Pewdie, Jim's son, who broke the silence. He had been watching, torn apart, and finally stepped forward. His voice cracked, but was steady enough to cut through the tension. "Dad, you can't do her like this. You can't." The words hung in the air, heavier than anything else said that night. Jim turned, his eyes narrowing, but he didn't lash out. Instead, his shoulders slumped. He knew his son was right. Pewdie's gaze then shifted to Chrissy. "And Chrissy, I know you love him, but maybe you love him too much to see when he's not ready, and that's not fair to you." The raw honesty stunned everyone. For years, Pewdie had watched the ups and downs, but never had he spoken so openly. In that moment, he wasn't just Jim's son. He was the voice of reason in a storm that had spiraled too far. Chrissy's tears spilled again as she looked at him. She whispered, "Baby, I just wanted us to be a family. Finally. Officially." Her words cracked the room open, exposing every hidden wound. Jim clenched his fists. "We are a family. Paper, ring, vows. That don't change what we got." But even as he said it, his voice faltered. He knew it wasn't enough for her anymore. Outside, the crowd was growing restless. Guests started asking why the ceremony hadn't started. Rumors trickled through the hall. Some thought Chrissy had cold feet, others assumed Jim had bailed. None of them knew the truth. Not yet. Backstage, the decision loomed like a shadow. Would Chrissy walk out there, fake a smile, and marry a man who wasn't truly ready? Or would she do the unthinkable, call the whole thing off in front of everyone? Then came the bombshell moment that shook everyone to their core. Chrissy stood, her gown brushing against the floor as she rose to her feet. Her voice was quiet but resolute. "I can't do this. Not like this. Not tonight. Night." The crew gasped. A few covered their mouths in disbelief. Jim froze, his eyes wide, as if the words had pierced through his armor. "Chrissy, don't. Don't do this to us." But she shook her head, tears streaming. "No, Jim, you already did this to us. You weren't honest with me. You weren't honest with yourself. And I can't walk down that aisle pretending like everything's okay, because it's not." The silence that followed was deafening. For years, fans had begged for this moment, rooting for Chrissy to finally get her dream wedding. But now, the dream had turned into a nightmare. The producers scrambled. Some whispered about salvaging the scene. Others worried about the fallout. But the truth was undeniable. The wedding was over before it ever began. Jim, visibly broken, tried one last plea. He stepped toward her, his voice shaking. "Chrissy, please don't walk away." "Not like this. We can fix it. I swear we can." Chrissy turned her back, her gown shimmering under the harsh backstage lights. "You've had years to fix it, Jim. Years. I'm done waiting." And with that, she walked out. Not toward the altar, but toward the exit. Her heels clicked against the floor like a funeral march, and every step echoed the death of the dream they once shared. The crew, stunned, could only watch. The cameras followed, capturing the most heartbreaking walkout in love and hip-hop history. Outside, as Chrissy's departure became clear, the guests murmured in confusion. Some gasped, others pulled out phones, ready to record the chaos. Social. Media lit up instantly. Tweets flew. "Chrissy just left Jim at the altar?" "Backstage meltdown, cameras caught everything." "This ain't love and hip-hop no more, this real life." The fallout was immediate. Within hours, clips leaked online and hashtags trended worldwide. Sure, Chrissy walks out and Jim and Chrissy over. Fans debated endlessly. Some sided with Chrissy, praising her strength to walk away, while others criticized her for airing private pain so publicly. But no matter the side, one thing was certain. The drama had taken on a life of its own. Chaimitsi. At the venue, Jim sat slumped in a chair, his head in his hands. For the first time, the man who had always been in control, always confident, looked completely defeated. Pootie placed a hand on his shoulder, whispering, "Dad, maybe this is the wake-up call you needed." Jim didn't respond. His silence spoke volumes. As the night ended, the crew packed up in stunned silence. What was supposed to be a wedding special had turned into a heartbreak documentary. The love story that had once inspired fans had now become a cautionary tale. And Chrissy? She left the venue with her friends, her head held high despite the tears. For her, it wasn't just the end of a wedding. It was the end of waiting, the end of hoping, the end of sacrificing her worth for a promise that never came. The cameras caught her last words as she stepped into the car. "I loved him more than I loved myself. But tonight, I chose me." The screen faded to black. What a night. What was supposed to be the happiest chapter in Jim Jones and Chrissy's love story turned into pure chaos. Backstage explosions, shocking walkouts, and a crew left in disbelief. But now the big question is, what do you think? Was Chrissy right to finally walk away after years of waiting? Or should she have gone through with the wedding, even if Jim wasn't truly ready? And do you believe Jim will fight to win her back? Or is this breakup the one that sticks? I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts, hot takes, and predictions down in the comments because this is a debate the entire love and hip-hop community needs to have. Trust me, I'll be reading every single one. If you've been with me through this whole emotional roller coaster, smash that like button so YouTube knows you want more of these deep dive breakdowns. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter in this ongoing saga. Because with Jim and Chrissy, the drama is far from over. And if you're really rocking with us, share this video on your socials and group chats. Let's get the world talking about this wedding bombshell.